welcome to the Above Average Podcast, the only refuge for the slightly above average and the only AA meeting worth attending. I'm your host, Lake, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Tanim. We got a lot of topics for today. We're going to cover everything from OnlyFans to recruiters to China's ban on effeminate men in media. Tanim, how's it going?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're in that weird purgatory where we feel like we're just coming out of the pandemic, but kind of, but not really. So like we're starting to think about going back to the office,
Or back to school.
but or back to school, and it just not. It's a very anxious time for me because going back to the office like really feels like the first day of school, that like mix of like dread, but it's probably going to be fine.
But you gotta get your fresh cakes and backpack ready.
Ugh, terrible. I'm gonna have to start wearing a suit again, instead of working in my pajamas. I don't know. I have like a weird anxiety about the drastic change to my lifestyle this will bring.
Because of the dress code?
Not just because of that. Just like, I mean, you know how it is. Like when you went from the office to your house, like you just had more time to do stuff. I had more time to do dishes. I could make my lunch fresh every day instead of having to pack it the night before. I could, I could take a 15-minute break and take a shower at like 10 o'clock instead of having to shower and shave before work. But yeah, the dress code. I gotta make sure all my fancy button-up shirts are clean and shit. It's just yeah, I don't know. And commuting. Going back to spending like an hour a day commuting, and like that little stress that like, oh, I'm gonna miss this train and be late for work and my boss is gonna be mad kind of.
Yeah. Well, now you have an excuse. You can be like, if you got me to work from home, this wouldn't happen.
I wonder how many people are gonna try and pull that. Just come in late and just be like, hey, I could have worked from home, but no, you guys had to have it this way.
Right.
Yeah. But I got to I didn't realize how much I didn't want to go back to the office until like this is kind of an interesting story, but I'll lead into it with this. I was contacted by two recruiters about the same job. Like they're from the same recruiting company, and they came to me with the same job, like weirdly and separately. But the job, they're already back at the office 1 day a week, and I just, as I sat there like reading that, like reading the sentence in the job description that like working in the office 1 day a week may go back to the office more in the future, I was just like, fuck no, absolutely
Red
not,
flag.
no way, man. I am not going back to the office earlier than I have to.
Right.
Yeah, like it's just I only want to. Part of me wants to go back because I don't like, if everyone's gonna be in the office, I feel like I should be there. Like I don't want to feel like I'm missing out working from home, but on the other hand, I don't want to go back earlier than I have to.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable where I am, like with everyone where I working from home. Like I'm on an even footing with everyone. Like this feels good. This feels safe.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that. They're kind of in that in-between stage of like wanting to go back, or their companies saying that they have to go back, and then others who are like, nah, I just want to stay home and keep things the way they are.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Like it's change is always hard. It's just like this feels like something like I have like a modicum of control over, and I'm just gonna put off the change as long as I possibly can. But back to the recruiters who contacted me. It was kind of funny because I figured like they must be having a pretty hard time in the industry right now. Like they're probably like short of dudes if they're both just cold calling me specifically about the same job. Like if they're both the guys working the same job,
Yeah.
trying to get me of all people of my limited, slightly above average
Of
skills.
course.
You think it's hard, like I know everyone's out of the job right now, but do you think like recruiters are just having a hard time because they can't convince people to work these jobs anymore? Like people are just comfortable where they are and discovered lifestyle changes that they don't want to give up.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like a lot of recruiters are having tough times. Like I'm pretty sure they have quotas they have to meet, and like they're trying to speak on behalf of these companies, even though they don't work for them. So it's tough to put on their salesman's hats and convince you to work for this company and believe that they're magically amazing when they probably aren't.
Yeah. I feel like being a recruiter, like being a pitchman for like a job is much more difficult than advertising for other products. Like, Coca-Cola, you can be like, "Oh, it tastes great," and it's not like the other generic brand colas, and the other generic brand colas can be like, "We taste about the same, but we're slightly cheaper."
Right.
But with recruiters, they're like, come work in an office for 8 hours a day until you're almost dead. Like, I don't know. It's like what their work is just not an appealing product to sell,
Yeah.
and it's not like there's much that differentiates the companies. Like, I feel like they got to give the same pitch. Like, oh, it's a great culture. We do a lot of teamwork. It's a fast paced, hardworking environment. Generic shit like that. That's just, I don't know. You have to say, but it's not remotely true, or there's no like really predicting whether or not it's true. Like that's a hard
It
pitch.
reminds me of being a telemarketer. So it's kind of like aspects where you just have to talk on behalf of this company they have no interest in and convince other people to join
Wait, so you were a telemarketer?
a long time ago.
Okay, yeah, like kind of out of university thing, or
More towards like high schoolish.
oh, okay, that yeah, fine. So some of us went to university after the recession, so there weren't any jobs. But what did you sell?
Selling like home repairs or something, like some kind of insurance that no one really needed. And it was
Oh,
kind of like
weird.
a pain in the ass to kind of get out, but like we didn't tell them that.
Well, I mean, it's always a pain in the ass to get out of like any kind of subscription
It was
service.
also an American company, so, like, we would get American holidays off and not Canadian ones, so, like, when all my
Oh,
friends
that is weird.
would be on, like, days off, I'd have to go and work.
Yeah, they try like in Canada they try and make up holidays so that our holidays match American holidays.
Yep.
Yeah, like I didn't realize that until I worked at a company where we did a lot of work with the U.S. and I was like, oh, by the way, we have this new thing called Family Day off in February, and yeah, so we're not going to be in the office this week. And then they're like, oh, what a coincidence! It's President's Day or what? I don't know what holiday they have in February, but like basically like almost all of our holidays match up. Like Victoria Day matches up with, I think, uh, Memorial Day or Veterans Day. They have two like veteran holidays. Like they have one in May and one in November, like us. But yeah, like yeah. So it was just weird that like we're just so. If anyone ever wondered why like Ontario has so many like weird generic holidays like Family Day, Civic Holiday, Victoria Day. That's why. Like cuz America has those days and they want us to have long weekends at the same time as Americans do.
So, yeah, when we take their days off, it's on the same.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's not a day where like we're at work and like we're at work and they're not and nothing gets done and us being there is pointless.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a strange realization I had. But yeah, no, sorry, yeah, back to what you were saying about being a telemarketer. Like I know that was a couple years ago, but like come on, does anyone listen to telemarketers anymore? Or is it just like old people who like kind of don't know any better?
I think there's still a big telemarketing business, just but instead of obviously using landlines, they call your cell phone. So, do you need this service? Or
Yeah.
sometimes it's more about like surveys. So, like, do you have time to do this so that they get information and then that company
Oh
pays
yeah.
them to do that research?
Yeah. I get that because like I mean I think regardless of the inconvenience, like people want their opinions heard and feel like they're inclined to do polling for that reason. I never get called by like Gallup or any of the polling companies to take surveys.
Right. I mean, mostly now it's like through email.
Yeah, that's true. I get emails from Angus Reid trying to do surveys, but then then I get like 5 questions in, and I'm like, I don't actually want to do this for free to give the company marketing data.
And that's why sometimes they have like they try to bribe you with like incentives, like $10 off of
Yeah.
this
No,
or what
I've
have you.
decided like I'll only do a survey if they like absolutely guarantee give me something. Like U of T, my alma mater, tries to send me like surveys, and it's always like, do the survey for a chance to win. And I'm like, nope, nope. You got to give me something to do the survey. My time is not free. My time is not
Yeah.
free unless I'm angry. You know, if I'm angry at like a certain professional association which had a certain examination blunder a few years back, I will do the surveys, like just to like express my displeasure at them. Like I never do really do surveys unless I get paid or I'm really angry, which I feel like throws off the accuracy of the surveys.
Right.
Yeah. But like I don't know, do like as a survey person, like do you want angry information more?
No, you just want
Oh, okay.
information regardless
So like
because they don't. I mean, obviously they want good feedback, but I mean, any feedback is research for
okay,
them.
yeah, yeah. But like they don't put like a particular value on like negative reviews and that sort of thing. Like just like
No, because that helps the company, right? So it's like if
yeah,
they,
yeah, but like is it like are negative reviews more valuable because of that?
they're just equally
Oh, okay.
valuable, I guess. But like, it's just information that tells them kind of which way to point them in the next step.
Okay, yeah. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I just like I don't know, I feel like angry. Well, I guess I think I'm thinking of the wrong type of angry reviews because, like, I was thinking good reviews are never helpful. It's like, oh yeah, the restaurant was delicious. Like that's it. But like angry reviews could be just as useless. It's like terrible, not no good, no nothing's good. Would leave 0 stars if I could. Like just nothing helpful as to
Yeah,
why they're angry. Yeah. I always feel kind of bad for like customer service people who have to like answer negative reviews and be like, "We're very sorry. We at Walmart Corporation do not tolerate racial
only
slurs
from
in any
our
of our stores."
employees.
And we'll yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's just yeah, like it's why like it's hard for me to like be angry at a company because like I'm not going to be angry at like the CEO or anyone with power to change things. Like I'm just going to be angry at some like low level employee and like me
Right.
and
That's why
just
like
ruin their day.
retail or like restaurants are not really good, but I mean like they actually look into reviews and like can make a difference.
Yeah, yeah, no, fair enough. Like reviews, it's like it's a little more impersonal, but I still feel like there's like an intern who has to like answer all the mean tweets that like Popeye's chicken
That's
gets.
their job. That's what you get for being a social
Yeah,
media manager.
yeah, I guess that's true.
You signed up
Yeah,
for it.
that's their fault for having a bullshit ass 21st century job.
I really think honestly that's a really hard job.
No, I know. I'm mostly kidding because it like sounds like a useless job, but like obviously it's
The
important.
amount of work that you put into that, especially like a good social media manager, like everything's just like being on top of trends and always
No,
being
yeah,
stuck on your phone, like it's insane.
yeah, no, it's yeah, no. I'm sure it's like a very draining,
24 hours.
demanding job. Yeah, because like if you suddenly find out that like if you're like the social media manager for KFC and suddenly you find out that like KFC is the acronym for like a new like jihadist terrorist group that like just executed a bunch of children, like you have to know that you have to know that like before you come into working.
Right. I mean, I had worked at a company, and some of the individuals had no idea what the Me Too movement was, and they're all female.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, and they had like signs for like events that said Me Too, and I'm like, yeah, you can't put that.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Yeah, that is what because like I could definitely see like people doing that like innocently before they knew. what Me Too meant.
Yeah, like they had signed already, like previously, and okay, they used it worked before, but then for a new event, like what are these signs? You know, there's like this thing called Me Too movement that's going on. They're
Ah,
like, they have
damn.
no idea.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. Speaking of marketing blunders, I know we talk about OnlyFans a lot on this show, but it's such an interesting cultural phenomenon. I'm sorry, I'm obsessed. Uh, don't take that quote out of context. uh, yeah, that had important context. Um, but yeah, so we talked about OnlyFans previously, talking about how like it seemed like they were trying to market to go straight, go legit, have like non pornography stars on it. And that was like DJ Khaled, or what was it, Floyd Mayweather or something like that. I don't even think Floyd Mayweather reads.
According to
So
50 Cent,
yeah. So like I'm not like I'm not super jazzed for like non Instagram
I mean, he doesn't need
content
to
from
read; he
them.
just gets someone to read for him.
Yeah, I guess you're right. He's rich enough for that. But anyway, so like we were noticing this trend to kind of move away from pornography and rebrand themselves, just as any any normal kind of straight
Reputable.
social media site like Patreon. And lo and behold, there was the porn ban on OnlyFans. So yeah, no, we seem to have predicted that they would try and become more respectable, ban pornography, but then seeing what happened to Tumblr a couple years ago, where it as it turns out they survived on porn, they decided to reverse this ban. And it got me thinking about companies that tried kind of radical rebranding strategies and and failed, and others succeeded. And I'm not sure I can like quite predict or describe what makes a good brand transition. Like the blunder example is always new Coke. Like Coca-Cola did a bunch of surveys, did a bunch of research, and found like, oh, in blind taste tests, people prefer Pepsi. So we're gonna change the Coca-Cola formula to be closer to Pepsi and try and like reclaim some lost market share from PepsiCo. But when they release it, everyone hates it because real life isn't a blind taste test, and trying to rebrand alienates their customer base. So, and that's kind of the problem you run into with rebranding. In order to claim a new customer base, you have to alienate, or you sometimes have to alienate your previous customer or existing ones. And then one that succeeded was Domino. So I don't know if the kids today know this, but back before 2010, kind of 15 years ago, Domino's was like the joke pizza. It was like the lowest possible tier of pizza, and its terrible taste was like it was like a pop culture phenomenon. Everyone knew that Domino's had bad pizza, but their CEO in 2010 decided, we're not the joke pizza anymore. We're changing everything. We're not just like making small improvements from here and there. We're like completely changing the recipe of the
Yeah,
pizza. And like, I'll be damned if loyal customers be damned. We're just gonna change it, and we're gonna see what happens. And it worked. Like Domino's like, has since become way more ubiquitous, at least in Canada, than it was when I was younger. Like just anecdotally, it went from just a couple locations to being in every neighborhood. So obviously this is a case where changing the brand from the ground up worked.
yeah.
So like I don't know how does that happen? Why did it work for Domino's but not for Coke?
Like when you mentioned Coke, what do you mean it didn't work?
It didn't work in the sense that like people hated the new recipe and they had to backtrack, and then they released Coke Classic and reversed all the changes they made. Whereas like Domino's, like they've kept up with their changes. They didn't backtrack on their rebranding.
Yeah, I guess with Coke situation when they backtracked just because they wanted to try, I guess, try something new. Maybe the new recipe cut costs with what ingredients they had to use, so that would have helped them. They were just like losing sales because no one liked the new version, so they went back. Whereas Domino's it could have went the same way. If Domino's made a shitty pizza in the rebrand, no one would buy it even more. So
Yeah, but do you think there's like, I don't know, do you think there's like a research component to it? Like it's just like it's like a quality of their market research, or it's just, random
no,
chance?
it's definitely not chance. I mean, there's a lot of analytics and data that goes involved into marketing campaigns and what works and what doesn't. But I think overall, it was just like a refresh look. They changed kind of the box, the logo, and then I guess people just realized, like, let's give them a chance, and then that chance equal to like a better recipe and a better taste.
Yeah. It was also like their campaign was weirdly, their advertising campaign that they'd changed was weirdly, like it felt weirdly candid for advertising. Advertising's usually just like, oh, we've always been great and we're going to, and now we're even better with these changes. Like it's one of those things where it doesn't seem like you can ever admit flaws. But the Domino's pizza campaign was very like open
Real
about
into
the fact that like no one liked their pizza.
right, yeah, they knew that people hated it, so they're just like admitting the
No, I
truth
know,
and
but
like,
it's weird. It's just weird to
admitting that
see
there's one.
that that they would admit it, even if it was true.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, but I get why they did it. It's strange, but like it adds an amount of sincerity to it. If they're saying something that's true that we know is true, but we think they would never say, it just feels like, oh, this must obviously clearly be true if they're actually admitting their pizza was bad.
yeah.
So it was a strange it was a strange turn of events. Old Spice kind of did the same thing, if you remember that. Like Old Spice in the 90s was like the old man's deodorant. Like it's the deodorant your grandfather used, or the yeah, like the spray deodorant your grandfather used. But through a successful marketing campaign with Terry Crews, like they managed to like rebrand themselves as like, the manly man's
Yeah.
deodorant.
I mean, but those companies have like a lot of research too and like money to think of new stuff. I
Oh,
mean,
I know, but so does Coca-Cola. Like shit, no one has more money than Coca-Cola. Like it's literally in basically every country except like Cuba and North Korea. But and they still failed. Like they did like a big, like they did a bold radical change that they presumably like put a lot of time and research into it. Optimized the flavor of Coca-Cola for the future. And it just didn't work. Like it did not materialize, and people hated it. Like their research turned out to be flawed because it was overly reliant on blind taste testing, which, as it turns out, wasn't a good model for real world conditions.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it doesn't work and you gotta kind of admit defeat and move on.
Yeah, no, but so if ever you feel like you fucked up, just remember Coca-Cola spent millions of dollars trying to change their recipe, and it just didn't work.
I'm sure there's a lot of companies like that.
No, yeah, yeah. But like that's just kind of like the notable example of someone where it failed. But speaking of rebranding, I had a thought, and you work in sports, so you'd be able to kind of answer this more accurately than I would have. But there's been a lot of articles recently about various sporting events, losing viewership, losing market share, especially among like younger viewers, and I thought about why I don't really watch sports that much. And basically it's because it's behind a paywall. Like I don't care to pay for it. Which, maybe that's I guess maybe that's the problem. It's just a product I don't want to pay for. But it feels like it's become more difficult to watch sports, and you might be losing some kind of like free marketing through family bonding. Like, you know, kids watch sports with their parents, and it turns them into fans in the next generation. And I feel like, maybe you might be losing some amount of casual fans and sports becoming more niche if everything's just like blocked behind pay-per-view or like pay for subscription services. Like it just might dissuade people from taking up sports fandom to begin with.
Yes and no. I mean, like if you're a diehard sports fan of whatever sport, there's always minor leagues that you can get into that are free, and you can just watch it. Kind of like raw talent, college football, what have you. All those games are hugely successful. There's still ways you can watch it instead of spending a lot of money. But also, the
Yeah.
flip side too, with technology, I think it's a lot easier because I mean, you now you can record live events and watch them later. So we didn't have that before.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Like it's so I guess like that probably like because of the technological development, like there's no necessity that like the big boxing match is going to be this thing that everyone has to watch at the same time.
Right.
But I don't know, it kind of ruins the bonding experience that sports I feel like used to have. Like maybe this is like a false nostalgia for something I never experienced or existed, but I don't know. I feel like sports could go further in generating a lot of like free goodwill just by like kind of forcing these like this like collective drama that everyone has to experience. Like everyone watching Muhammad Ali beat the shit out of Joe Frazier, or George Foreman in the Congo being watched by their leopard skin hatted dictator. Like everyone experienced that at the same time. Where instead of I don't know, maybe I'm just having a boomer moment. Boomer.
I mean, I guess they realize how much more money you can make now than they did before, and like something that they just released was, I think it's the NHL that they're now gonna put a full sponsored jerseys for next year,
Oh
which
God.
I warned people was gonna happen because this year they put sponsors on their helmets only, and I'm like, watch them next year put them on jerseys like they have in soccer and football and in the NBA.
Oh God. Like, do you think this is gonna be like when you say that it's not gonna be like is it gonna be like the Bumble logo just on like the Clippers that the Clippers have on like just like the corner of their uniform?
Hopefully, it only goes that far, like little side patches, but
Yeah,
like
just
who
like
knows?
oh my God, we're gonna turn into Euro trash and like all the hockey uniforms are just gonna say like Fly Emirates on them. Ew, terrible. Or worse, we're gonna become the Philippines, where you ever watch Filipino basketball?
I have
Yeah, so
not.
Filipino basketball, it's interesting because the teams aren't divided by city; they're divided by sponsorship. So like
Nice.
the teams are like named after
Jollibee.
yeah, like so it'll be like the Flag Mobile Talking Texters or some shit like that. Like they've really really stupid corpos,
Yeah.
and it's just like that is the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, but like all sports took a hit this year with COVID hitting, and I mean, if you watch any NHL games, all the seats are filled with brand sponsors like oversized logos on them.
Dear God, no, that's the dystopian future of sports when your seat becomes more valuable as advertising than as than as an actual seat.
Right.
Do you think sports being in decline like makes them more dependent on advertisers or less because the advertisers would presumably be less interested?
I think they're more inclined.
Oh well, that's a shame. So good luck, hockey.
NBA
But
kind of set a path. I mean, football set a path kind
mm,
of with that too. But let's just hopefully it doesn't get super crowded where it's like sponsors first and then your team
yeah.
logo.
Though I mean, like we complain about the uniforms, but like the NFL had like the fucking game highlights playbacks be sponsored by like GMC or some shit.
Yeah.
So it's already pretty packed to the gills. So I wouldn't
Yeah, every sports break is sponsored by someone.
yeah. See, what I realized I love is new sports, like sports that are just starting out, and so there's all sorts of fuckery because like they're just figuring. You ever see like the first UFC fights?
Yeah, those were good because it's kind of like what martial arts like beats the rest.
No, yeah, exactly. It was awesome. Like there were no weight classes and basically no
Yeah.
rules. So like you just have like 6 foot six, like 300-pound Dutch judo master trying to fight like a tiny 5'4" Indonesian kickboxer. Like it was just the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was that was like a true blood sport. It was great because it was experimental. Like it was before, like now that UFC's kind of been established more, like there's techniques have been more optimized, so there's kind of like a standard method of
Yeah,
fighting that's like, a mix of like kickboxing and jujitsu. But yeah, no, it was the early days of UFC were fucking
yeah,
wild.
because we had like street brawlers against like crazy like karate experts or what have you.
Yeah, but also like fucking karate dads from Minnesota just like getting their asses kicked by these like Brazilian martial arts
Yeah,
masters. Like and you get like the guy from Duluth saying like, "Oh, I have a black belt from my local dojo. I'm going to try this
yes.
out." It's just it was so hilariously mismatched, and I miss those days. Not that I ever watched it at the beginning, but I now that I saw how it was, it feels more special. Oh, and the uniforms weren't standardized either. So you had guys like going in boxing shorts, like fighting guys in like full like
Yeah, these are
karate
just
gis.
regular everyday clothes that come
Yeah,
in.
like it was fucking amazing. That was a golden age. So I love the pioneering days of sports. It's more fun.
I mean, you like those sports, you should really pay attention to the
Oh
Paralympics.
yeah, those are going on right now, right? Like they happen after the Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, I think they're about to end, but I mean, I just like nothing against Paralympics. Like I love sports, and watching them, I'm like, what's this sport? It's like they invented sports just for the Paralympics.
Like what? What's an example? Is it blind
There's a
weightlifting?
sport called goalball, and honestly, I don't know the exact rules, but it looked like you had these individuals that had blindfolds, and the other team tries to score on the net blindfolded.
So is it like handball but for blind people?
I guess, but I don't think they're blind.
Wait, maybe they're blindfolded because maybe they're
They're
blindfolded
partially
because
blind.
yeah, like some people are like because like most people who are like legally blind aren't like fully blind. Like I should rather I should say they can't like they it's not like they don't see anything and it's just blackness. Like most people who are legally blind have like some amount of vision. It's pretty rare that you have no vision at all. So maybe the blindfolds are kind of trying to equalize things between like people who effectively just don't have eyes and people who just like such severe astigmatism they can't really function.
Maybe, but then the highlight was just like they're all lying on the floor trying to like just hear the ball bounce so that they know how to block it from the net. And I'm like, what are these guys doing?
Wait, hold up. So they like they lie on the floor to hear the ball? Like that's how that
The
works?
crowd has to be silent, and you just have to wait and hear where the ball is and try to block it from your net.
That is interesting. I got to check this out. But like does it work? Like do people most of the time block it or like how mismatched is
But then what I saw is it's kind of like dodgeball too, where like some of your opponents leave if they I don't know how it works, but I remember one clip where it's like there was three on one side and one on the other, and the other person on one had no chance.
it? See, I would pay good money to watch blind dodgeball.
That's what it looks like, and I'm like, this can't be real.
Blind dodgeball sounds on. See, I fully disagree. I love Paralympic sports. Like like have you ever played wheelchair basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I like all the sport. I just didn't understand what this was, and I
Yeah.
felt like they just made it up solely because of this. But I mean, it could be
No,
a
yeah.
sport that's been going on for years, but
Wheelchair basketball is
I don't
awesome.
get wheelchair rugby.
Yeah, how does that work? Can you like is it like touch rugby basically?
All I saw, it just looked like bumper cars to me, honestly.
See, I don't know, man. I'm very in favor of having bumper cars be a sport.
But like you can't really tackle someone. Like it just felt like okay, one guy had the ball and he just went to the other side, and some of them bumped him, and he just like went through them, and I was like, okay,
I could see how that could be good, but the reality is not doesn't always match up to expectations. Now, sledge hockey is the finest attempt at adapting a sport for the Paralympics. That is a quality Paralympic sport.
Right.
Sledge hockey, like, uh, if you've never seen it, like, it's generally for guys who have more limited use of their legs or otherwise can't skate. Um, so they lie on this sled with like ice skate blades on the bottom of them, and instead of having one hockey stick, they have two sticks, and the underside of the stick is like an ice pick that lets you like propel yourself forward with your arms. So like the dudes are like bumping into each other in these sleds and like trying to whack the puck. And so like it has a different kind of strategy to it than hockey because you can't really move the puck and move your sled at the same time.
Right.
So it adds like an interesting dynamic to the sport. So I think like sledge hockey is like a quality adaptation of a sport to a Paralympic sport. Or sorry, I shouldn't say that. That not that Paralympic sports aren't sports, but like an Olympic sport to a Paralympic sport.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah, it's yeah, no, I feel like I need to watch the Paralympics more cuz like I'm not sure like how they divide certain things.
Also, like when they added climbing to regular Olympics, I'm like, really? Was that needed?
Yeah, apparently. So like back to what I said about like, you know, sports viewership being in decline, like the Olympics is the same way. Like a lot of it's they're adding a lot of new sports like you know, like skateboarding and rock climbing to kind of like bring back viewership to try and like reach the younger generation.
I mean, I get skateboard. Skateboarding was always kind of a sport with like X Games way
Yeah.
back, and like, probably should have been added before. But like climbing, I get maybe climbing an actual rock mountain, but like a fake one with like pegs in it, and like to see how fast you can go up it, and that's how
Oh
Olympic
man,
medalists
it's
kind of.
pretty cool. Like I like those with rock climbing. I'm way more impressed upon like it's way more impressed upon me like how much inhumanly superior Olympic athletes are to me. Like you know when I watch people run 100-meter dash, like I'm just thinking like yeah I can run fast too. But like you know when I see someone climb a wall in 10 seconds, it would take me like you know 20 minutes. It's just like it's very apparent like just how much more fit these people are than me. Like, I don't know, I just find rock climbing very impressive, mostly because I'm like afraid of heights and that like severely inhibits my rock climbing abilities.
Yeah. There's also that clip of regular Olympics where some guy in judo he like kicked some guy too hard that he got disqualified. Know what that meant. And I saw all these clips of it, and everyone was
Oh,
going
that's
nuts. But like,
ridiculous.
apparently he won the fight, but like he got kicked out because he hit him
What?
too hard.
See, that's the problem with trying to like. It's the problem with trying to make violent sports non-violent. People are talking about like they got to make boxing safer, so that's more about points and less by knockouts. But like it, those sports are violent by their nature. Like it's not. You aren't gonna like change the rules to make like you can change the rules to make it less prone to injury, but you know there's certain limits.
But you know what you're getting when you go into him as an athlete.
Yeah, you're gonna be like trying to get your ass kicked by like world class athletes. Like it's not like the people who are best at this specific type of ass kicking.
Right.
One of my favorite ones was there was this Algerian judo I don't know what you call them judo athlete, and he refused to fight this Israeli one, you know, for obvious political reasons. The issue was is like the Israeli fighter was ranked eighth in the world, and this dude was ranked like 437, some shit like that. So like it wasn't really meaningful. Like I feel like it's only meaningful to not fight someone if you weren't absolutely guaranteed to lose it.
Yeah.
Like, cause that then it just you know it feels like it's lacking in dignity. Speaking of unmitigated disasters and failed rebrandings, did you see that video of that woman made of the horrifying life of a resident of the ice building?
I did not.
All right, so you're in for a treat with this one. So for those who don't know, The ice buildings are, I believe, the tallest condo buildings in Toronto, and they were finished pretty recently, and they're kind of notorious for not being well built, but kind of more notorious for,
Housing douchebags.
yeah. Well, maybe not that. That's just among us, but more famous for, it's just rented out as, like, people don't live there. It's just rented out as Airbnbs. It's effectively like a giant quasi legal hotel, and as a result, people just trash it all the time because they don't live there. Like if you don't, if you don't have to, like people don't clean their shit and piss off of toilet seats in public washrooms because they don't have to live there. Like they're gonna go home, but like no one's toilet at home is like that because they have to live there. So it's the same principle. So people just trash the place, and they're right next to like a bunch of sports stadiums. So people get rowdy, go there to watch like a sports game, come home, stay the night there, and then just trash the place. And obviously, because they're human trash from Oshawa, they just shoot each other for no reason. Yeah, but the more horrific thing that struck me about it was the fact that like the buildings are legitimately too tall for their own good, and it kind of like exposes the peril of living in a 50-story building, because one, there's like four elevators for like the whole 50 floors of the building, and oftentimes it would just completely break down, and then you had like one elevator for the whole building. And it's made even worse by COVID, because with COVID, like, you can only fit like two or three people in the elevator at once. You can't just like all cram in like sardines like you used to. So it reduces the elevator capacity by like half
Yeah,
at least. And that's like the biggest problem until like you have pets and you have to bring them down every day, and it becomes like a half an hour ordeal to like bring your dog outside to take a shit, or like when the garbage chute broke down and you have to like spend half an hour taking out the garbage. Like, so what ended up happening is like people just started leaving their garbage or just letting their dogs shit in like the stairwell, and it
nice.
just completely started to break down. Yeah, it's kind of like showing the perils of building too tall buildings. Like the reality of them is not always sexy. Like, as futuristic as they might look, there's like a lot of engineering problems with them. One of the issues is that, so while superficially like they seem like they'd be more efficient because you're packing like 1,600 people into like 10,000 square, like a 10,000 square foot footprint, but the larger issue is that once you get past 8 stories, you start running into engineering issues, and it stops being more efficient because like you have to dedicate more and more of the footprint to elevator space. You have engineering problems, bring water up and down, maintaining water pressure at the top floors. The electricity to use to like bring elevators all the way up to like the 1,000th foot of the building, etc. So like in some sense, it's not actually worth it to build that high. Like the issue is more that like with Toronto anyway, like there's plenty of space in Toronto. It's just you can only build tall buildings in like a very small area. Like anyone who's seen, most people who live in Toronto would complain about like there's new tall condo buildings going up all the time, but if you actually like take a look at the city from high up, you notice like there's only tall buildings along like a very narrow strip of Yonge Street and south of Bloor, and basically nowhere else. It's basically all just like single detached houses for the rest of the city, and like that's because like there's only like a certain area where you can build up above a certain number of floors. So the areas where you can do that, they build them to like 1,000 feet, but not actually 1,000 feet, more like 600-700 feet. But yeah, it's weird. Like it's weird because like there's not actually the necessity for this, but that's what ended up happening anyway.
But you want to get one of those in the Hyatt.
No, I know. I like On the other hand, I really want to live on the top floor of one of these buildings. It's just there's so many bomb threats and like shootings every time there's a Blue Jays game.
It's true. I mean, people get wild because they can't watch the Blue Jays.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. It's just it's such a weird such a weird phenomenon that like people are just like, oh, my sports team won, so I'm gonna trash everything.
Well, that was one of their vices, to like release, right? So it's just like you take that away, you keep them locked up, isolated. They're gonna have to vent somehow, and that's what they do.
Like you mean like so you think this is like partly like a quarantine thing or
I mean, if you take away someone's kind of release, it gets extra into something else, and it can lead to like violent situations or just not having that release.
yeah. Or just like I don't know, people's emotions get really high when they're at sporting events.
Yeah,
In my view, like semi unreasonably so. Like, just the fact that like, soccer games in Europe just kind of turn into race riots sometimes. Like, I feel like that's a bit far.
yeah. Again, this comes back to like that release. Like you go, you deal with all your shit from work or whatever, and then you kind of bring that to like the field, and like you feel like you can release all that there, and when you can't, you take it out on someone.
Exactly. And that's why China has made a huge mistake trying to oppress gamers. Like, they came for Hong Kongers and then they came for Uyghurs and now they've come for gamers and they've gone too far.
Gamers are gonna let know how they feel.
Yes, exactly. For those who don't know, China has begun announcing like new draconian media controls. One of them is they're banning effeminate, quote unquote, effeminate men from TV and media in an effort to, I guess, make everyone more manly or something.
Take that,
But
BTS.
yeah, exactly. It's just a blatant attack against K-pop stars for being too beautiful. So that's in some ways I would take it as a compliment. But yeah, another thing they've done is that they want to restrict online gaming for children to like 3 hours a week.
Unless you're over 18.
Yeah, I know exactly. Which, fuck, man, that's not enough. That's not enough gaming.
I mean, that's what a lot of kids would do. Just play video games when you're bored or what have you, and that kind of was like your escape.
Exactly, because like you know, if you live in like the industrial wasteland of Guangdong, like what are you gonna do? Play outside? Like shit. Like I don't know that's like old people complain about like young people not playing outside, but then they also like built cities to be these like unwalkable suburbs that like don't have sidewalks
Right.
and like act surprised when the kids just stay inside.
Also, these kids sometimes end up making these big, huge companies that help provide economy for.
Oh my god. So like they're just relying on the kids just like staying inside and like inventing the next TikTok. The issue with like how I feel it might impact us is that online games like Overwatch, like they never had to worry too much about Chinese censorship just because there's not really like plot isn't really that important to those games. Where so now if the market starts to shift towards single player games because that's like the only games you can play to get around the government censors, then the issue is that if the market share shifts towards single player games, then the Chinese market and therefore the CCP censors are going to have more influence on the gaming industry, at least like I said, in terms of single player games, which means no more fucking Liberty Prime and Fallout, who is, of course, the robot that says, death is a preferable alternative to communism. We're not going to have that anymore. So that's what I fear, man. The suppression of gamers is going to take away Liberty Prime.
Right. I mean, but China also relies a lot on the gaming industry, so like that's gonna hurt them too.
Yeah, no, it seems like they might be giving up a lot of their soft power because, like, we saw how dominant K-pop became here. Like, and South Korea is like a relatively small country compared to the US, and BTS still made huge inroads. Despite, language barriers and things like that, they still have a huge following in Canada and the US. And you'd think China would try and replicate this success and try and like spread their cultural influence through, the oppressive nature of boy bands. But apparently that's not going to happen.
They went the other way. All right, thanks for everyone for tuning in. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, and don't forget to check us out on social media, podcast_above on Twitter, and the Above Average Podcast everywhere else.
Fucking right.